Into every generation, podcasters are born. Two guys in all the world, chosen ones. They alone will wield the strength and skill to discuss the vampires, demons, and the forces of darkness, to lament the spread of their evil and the swell of their number. This is the Untitled Buffy Project. Welcome to the final episode of the Untitled Buffy Project.
You know, Sean, we committed to doing this quite a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. It feels forever ago now.
I think that we had the idea around about the time when we were starting our podcast. And I knew conceptually, or like in my head, I knew like we were going to be doing a show that would last 22 episodes. And it would be weekly. But somehow it didn't like click in my head that that's basically half a year.
Like, the reason it is 22 episodes is because of how long it takes on television to air.
Right. I mean, that didn't process for me that, like, oh, man, we're going to do this thing.
I will be doing this for months.
4 months. And just, like, to, you know, spoil a little bit of our production, frequently we have recorded maybe, like, 2, 3, 4 of these at a time. But
at least once we did 4. We did a to be continued in with like 2 other episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. So we haven't like done an episode and recorded, but still this whole project has taken almost half a year. And it's sort of when we were in the middle of it and I realized we'd already done several months of Buffy and we were like halfway through, I was just sort of like, what have we got ourselves into? This is a mess. But I'm actually really glad we did it. I was sort of not sold on Buffy. I think you brought up doing Buffy, didn't you?
I think I probably did. It was one of the first things I thought of when we started talking about doing a TV show because it is very accessible. It's easy to find on the internet, and also because of who I knew was in our fan base. I was pretty sure Joss Whedon was kind of a touching stone for everyone.
Right, I think I was like, oh yeah, let's do X-Files, which I would still like. I think would be really cool, but you know, I think it has much more limited penetration into the people who are on YouTube these days, and I was sort of not sold on Buffy, even as I texted Sean, like I was doing my research, watching the first couple seasons. I'm like, okay, well, that first season wasn't great, and the production values aren't stellar, and then we got into doing this project, and by now I've already told Sean this. I'm already into the 5th season. I'm like, oh, I gotta keep watching this. This is great.
You're chewing away at it.
Yeah. So at the very least, if anything came out of this, you turned me into a Buffy convert. So
yeah, the other reason I picked this was somewhat selfish because I still haven't watched the last season, and this is going to be my impetus to watch the whole rest of the show.
Oh, I will definitely watch the whole rest of the show and likely get the comics.
Right, I know. I want to know what happens afterwards. I can't believe that they're moving into season 9 now in the comics.
Yeah, I know that I will want to know just because of all this. And you picked a really good season. It sort of is it's also right smack dab in the middle of the production of the whole TV series. So
right.
That probably helps. But also it's really smack dab in the middle of it being this kind of quirky, you know, monster of the week show and something more like this episode and something more like the episodes that we've talked about. And you know, I've already started watching some of the 5th season, and they've got some really interesting things that they're doing that you didn't see a lot in the late 90s, early 2000s, and you don't see a lot these days either.
Definitely.
A lot of the things that they were doing. So, yeah. So I'm it's a bittersweet ending. We're coming to the end of Buffy, but I'm glad.
So I guess we should point out explicitly that we're saying that we're not going to keep doing this.
We will not. This is the end of the Untitled Buffy project.
There's not enough time in the world for us to continue watching these episodes twice and then talking about them.
Let me reiterate that this took half a year. and I don't think either of us really processed that entirely. And I'm glad we're here, but I'm also glad we're done.
That said, since we're going to both keep watching it, I think every so often we'll catch up and maybe we'll air some of our grievances on SCHP.
Yeah, likely. Oh, almost certainly. Like,
especially when you get to the episode with the singing, because come on.
Does Giles sing in it?
Everyone sings.
Okay. As long as Giles sings, I'm fine with it.
Giles sings in this episode, which we should get to talking about.
Let's. So this episode, Restless, directed and written by Joss Whedon, so that either means it's going to be really good or really bad.
I think just the fact that there's no cold open was enough to indicate like something was going on.
My first note is this is the first and I think possibly only Buffy I've seen so far that does not have a cold open.
Yep, just launch right into title sequence.
And it's this short thing. It's like every other Buffy. Joyce is there, and I'm like, oh hey Joyce.
Oh Joyce.
I'm always glad when we see her because we see her so infrequently. And it's just sort of like right after the battle.
Right.
They're like, oh, we're just like so jazzed, and we defeated Adam, and apparently a video store was still open, so they rented a bunch of videos on VHS tapes, which dates this episode impossibly.
You know, they even that year they could have easily been getting DVDs. Why? That was weird.
Well, maybe like
it was the very end of the VHS era.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost 2001. I kind of think that it was probably more difficult to rent a DVD at that time, but I don't want to get it. We shouldn't get into that. Riley had a good joke. Bay of mutilated pigs.
I liked that too.
Funny. I wrote that down. And it's just like a normal everyday Buffy episode, like, but they're all gonna go and watch some movies, and
specifically Apocalypse Now, Xander's pick.
That's one of them, and they've also got a bunch of chick and British guy films, so there's something for everyone. We'll be up all night, and they do that whole we'll be up all night, and then they're like, it cuts to Joyce going upstairs, and then it cuts back to our crew, and they're all like dead asleep.
And that is the card for the written and directed by Joss Whedon, and then commercial.
Yes,
it was really cute.
Yes, and now when we come back, you already know something is awry because the music is much different from any other music we've ever heard on Buffy.
That is one of my notes. This music is very different.
This music is very different from most we've heard on Buffy, is my note here.
There's something very similar about it, but then there's like stuff added to it that I want to say like a tribal feeling, like drums and horns.
Yeah, and there is some vocals, like someone
chanting or something.
Yeah, and it's very, very different. Have you seen the sci-fi version of? Oh, and we're talking about the episode right now.
You interrupting yourself with another thought?
Yeah, I want to interrupt myself right now and just say, Sean and I have had a firm rule that none of these episodes that we record will be longer than the episode we're talking about. I think we'll probably waive that for this one, just in case. Anyway, have you seen the sci-fi version of Children of Dune?
No.
Okay, well, they have a lot of sort of chanting music that reminded me of this, and it's very tribal and.
Actually, you know what I thought of? I thought of 2001.
It's that high pitch, there's a lot of stuff going on with the music. I'll say that.
It definitely feels eerie, and it makes you feel strange,
anxious, and not at ease, and so the very first shot we get is the camera's way back, and it's coming up on Willow, and I guess someone was either holding it or it was on like a little crane on a dolly or something, because it just like pans effortlessly over the coffee table right up to Willow.
And then like starts rotating up over her head.
Yes, and then we're in Willow's dream.
And it's pretty overt. I mean, it's not like mysterious about the fact that we're in a dream. We are in a dream.
Exactly, with Tara, who is naked.
Ooh.
And they've got their cat. What's their unofficial name for the cat?
It's like Miss Kitty.
Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty is overcranked, so she's in slow-mo, which I think is hilarious.
Yes.
She looks like a tiger stalking the camera.
Yeah, and they shoot her, like, the camera's on the floor, so she looks huge.
She looks huge. It's overcranked. It's on the floor. She's playing with this thing. Oh, and since she's in slow-mo, they did something with the sound when she's batting like the yarn. It sounds like boom,
Yeah.
boom. It just makes it like a dream. Everything in this episode makes it's. I don't know how much time they spent on this, or what psychiatrist they went to, or like what dreams that they wrote down in their dream journals, but everything in this episode is like a dream that I've had before.
Yeah, there are elements, there are specific things I'm thinking of later that I saw them, and I've mentioned before, I hardly ever remember my dreams, but things that happen in here, I'm like, yes, I've totally experienced that in a dream.
I'm going to bring that up here in a little bit. So when Tara says, "You don't know everything about me," my next note is immediately like, oh, Tara's a demon. And then my next note is, wait, maybe Willow's a demon. Wait, maybe Buffy's a demon. I don't know, maybe they're all demons.
They're all demons. We're watching a show about a bunch of anti-heroes.
That was my last note, is maybe they're all demons. This show is just playing with my mind. And so Willow is drawing Greek letters on Tara's back. I assume they have some meaning, but I didn't look it up.
It is a love poem.
Aww.
There is it has been, someone figured out what it actually is. It is some love epic poem.
Aww. They're in love. But there's also a lot of tension between the two of them.
They seem to be talking about two different things.
Willow, through her whole dream, seems to just be like, what's going on? She thinks she's Willow, and everyone else is kind of dealing at some different level.
Right.
Okay. So, unless you have anything else. Oh, well, and Willow opens the window
there's a big freaking desert outside.
Desert, that makes no sense. Then Willow's in drama class, and it's like a play is happening. And
I showed up early. I get to be the cowboy.
I have a note. Cowboy guy equals random hero we have little use for outside of this plot.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't that interesting? It's like they're almost acknowledging my criticism of him right here.
Joss is critiquing himself a little.
A little bit. It's just like, I'm cowboy guy. It's like, you're not going to last much longer, guy. Cowboy guy does not belong in, like, character or show with Buffy and Willow and Xander, etc. One of the ways that they acknowledge that this is, like, a play that's about to start is you hear the orchestra tuning up.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And this is the part that I wanted to bring up. I have this dream pretty frequently. So I performed in a lot of plays in high school.
Yeah. And
to this day, I mean, so, like, I haven't performed in anything in like over 6 years. Every couple months, I will have this Willow dream.
Where there's a production going on and you're not ready yet?
Yeah, with less of the lesbianism, but, you know, where I show up, and it's like my school and everything, and everyone's like, we're getting ready to do the show, and I'm like, what? I don't know my lines. I haven't even prepared for this. We have a show going on? And it was eerie how, I just wonder if other performers, maybe like other people who've performed on stage or maybe like performed in a band or something, like have had this dream before and they just like wrote it down and put it in the episode, because I was like, oh my God, this is just what it's like.
This scene had one of the things that gave me pause when Harmony, is it Harmony?
Yeah, Harmony's
when she's vamped out all of a sudden and she's just trying to bite Giles. I've experienced this thing in dreams where like violence doesn't work. Like there will be like either I will be like throwing a punch or someone else will, and it like doesn't, it's not real. It doesn't, like, it just slides off. Like, it's completely ineffective. And I was like, that's exactly what's happening to Harmony right now.
Yes. Yeah. And also, Giles as the director was also quite funny.
As soon as I heard his voice, I was like, of course Giles is the director.
Stop that.
Stop that?
Those things, you hold them with your hands. Props? No. Props? Yes.
Yes.
And the thing that I really liked about her dream was they played the preparation for a play like a play. Mm-hmm. In fact, I even think Giles had eye makeup on. It was like subtle, but it was like a play, which is fun. And it's Death of a Salesman?
But it's nothing like any Death of a Salesman production you've ever seen.
It's Death of a Salesman with, like...
Mixed up with, like, flapper outfits.
Yeah, and cowboys... And I don't know what. And neither does...
Apparently Willow has never seen Death of a Salesman.
Right, so she just fills it in with whatever.
Right.
And then I think you even texted me this. We both had the thought when she goes sort of like into the curtains, red curtains, dreams, Twin Peaks.
I mean, they show the exact shot that they used for Twin Peaks between the curtains.
Right. I'm just, oh my God, it's Twin Peaks. And right before that, they had that guy with the cheese, which is sort of like the log lady or whatever. It's
yes.
such a Twin Peaksy kind of thing.
Yeah, I will point to the wiki that the cheese man is the one thing in the episode that is supposed to make no sense.
I think I saw that. I skimmed the wiki.
Joss said, dreams often mean a lot of things, and like you're supposed to, like you can take things from your actual mind when you're thinking about your dreams, but there's always something in a dream that makes no sense, and in this case, it's the cheese man.
I wear the cheese doesn't wear me. Is that what he says in one of the dreams?
I don't know. He's a loon.
So at this point, when she's talking with Tara, it's really clear that Willow has no idea it's a dream because she's so earnest. Like, I don't understand why drama class is starting with a play, and I don't even know my lines, and what is happening? And Tara is like, oh, well, the play's already begun. And she's like, no, you don't understand. Like, there's more than you know happening right now. So the only thing I don't know, I will just come out right now and say it. I don't know anything about any of the dreams in this episode. Like, I'm not, a critic of Buffy. I have not seen all of Buffy. I can't, like, dissect this. The only thing that I took away from this is, since they said that Willow's family is in the crowd, I just assume that Willow hasn't come out to her family, and that's something that's weighing on her.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only thing that I'm like, well, and also that she's uncomfortable with her life as it stands right now.
Yeah, I think Willow's dream, perhaps more than the other three, is more of what's to come.
Mm.
And except for the rest of the dream, which takes place in the old high school,
Yes.
I think it's largely pointing to something that is going to happen to Willow's character.
Got it. So, yeah, the big takeaway from her dream was just that she's not comfortable with herself, it seems. Both with herself and Tara, herself as a confident adult. Like, part of her dream is regressing back to high school, and Buffy even, like, rips her clothes off, and she goes back into that, like, stupid...
Yeah, she tells her, like, you're not fooling anyone. We all know what's under there.
Right, which is, like, you're not actually confident. You're not actually, the Willow who has a girlfriend and does magic. You're just, like, the girl who does book reports on The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And then the first Slayer comes out and sucks her spirit out of her ear or something.
Yeah.
So something's hunting all of them, by the way. We didn't mention that.
Yeah, Willow seems aware of it pretty early in the dream. Even if she doesn't know she's dreaming, she starts asking Tara what's after her.
Yeah, and she kind of sees it out in the desert of her mind. And it's we learn at the end of the episode that it's the first Slayer, and it sucks her spirit out, or whatever. I think that's what we're supposed to think.
Yeah.
Because they did that whole thing, Spiritus, the spirit.
Yeah, they actually call to the first Slayer when they did that spell to unite them as one. It wasn't Captain Planet they were calling, it was the first Slayer.
Yes, it was. So Willow's out, and we sort of come out of the dream, and she's like flopping around on the couch. And then we go
she'll be fine.
She'll be fine. Then we go to Xander, and now we're gonna go to Xander's dream. His dream starts as if he's just awake in the house.
Yeah, they kind of pulled a head fake on us. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. It seems like he's just awake, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on with Willow?" And Buffy says like, she's just a big faker.
At which point I was a little like, okay, hold on a second.
maybe this isn't what's, I don't know. And then I love the war movie they have on.
Yeah,
There's, like, a
apparently
guy-
this is the footage that Xander remembers from Apocalypse Now, which is not right at all.
No, it's just a guy trudging through. It's just a single guy trudging through like a forest or a jungle or something. He's like, my men, we gotta take that hill. What happened to my men?"
It's really obvious that it's on a green screen.
Yeah, and Giles even says like, I think that people have been like, giving Apocalypse Now like too much credit all these years. And as Xander gets up to leave, you hear, I think they might go to Giles, but you at least hear him say, "Oh, I'm beginning to understand this now. It's all about the journey."
That's actually why why he leaves, because then Xander goes, "Oh, thanks for making me have to go to the bathroom, Giles."
Yes. Yeah. And then he gets seduced by Joyce.
At which point I was finally like, "Oh, okay, no, this isn't real."
Yes. He gets seduced by Joyce. Something that I thought was...
Wow, Joyce is kind of hot.
I was thinking, like, one, if Joyce was seducing me, like me, my age, like 25, would I be attracted to her? And I'm like, yeah, maybe, kind of. And then if I were Xander's supposed age, like 19, would I be attracted to her? And then I'm thinking, like, oh boy, I don't know that. You know?
Actually, in this scene, I'm pretty sure the guy who plays Xander is older than you are now.
Yeah, see, he's older than I am now. If I was actually 19... Like, if one of my friends' moms was trying to seduce me, and she looked like Joyce, would I actually be attracted? Even if she was wearing, like, a hot bread silk thing. I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, she's got to be 40, at least 40. And someone who's 40 now, I'd still be like, you're 40. But at 19, I'd be like, you're old.
But Xander's a comfortador.
He is a comfortador. He's got mixed up feelings about sex and stuff.
Clearly.
So then he goes to take a whiz, and people are watching him.
The entire, like, initiative is just standing there.
Right.
This is one of those... There was a moment in Willow's dream where there's just dead silence. This is another one of those where there's, like, 10 seconds of just dead silence.
Yeah, that part in Willow's dream was great. It was, as they were getting ready for the performance to start, everything goes quiet except you can hear her footfalls.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Very good sound design. So Xander is, okay, I don't want to go pee in front of these people. I'm going to leave. This was the moment when I noticed that the Summers house has New England light switches, the buttons. It has a top and a bottom button. Like, you push this button to turn the light on, you push that button to turn the light off.
I can't believe I didn't notice that. It escaped my notice.
Yeah, you notice that? I noticed that. So then he's suddenly outside in a playground, and it's, like, super overexposed.
And one of my absolute favorite things in the episode occurs right here. Can you guess what it is?
Is it a watcher scoffs at gravity?
It's just the fact that Spike is trying to be a watcher. Where did Xander's mind put that together from?
Spike's like a son to me. Oh man, I don't have the line down, but Spike says something obvious, and then
And Giles goes, "Very good, Spike."
Very good, Spike. And they're just swinging away, and
they're both wearing the same tweed suit.
Yeah, Buffy is there. She's like a child in like a little sand pit, and he says something like, do you think you should be doing that? You're in danger down there. And she says, way ahead of you, big brother. And he's like, brother? What? What's happening? And at some point, her little sand play thing turns into the whole desert.
Yeah.
Keep coming back to this big desert. And then Xander has a little bit of a sex dream about Tara and Willow when he's in the ice cream truck.
See, this is what I was getting from this scene, and
okay.
you can offer your analysis.
Okay.
Xander's talking about like how he has to be a man, and a man is always moving forward, and he's like got an objective and conquests.
Okay.
And I think that Xander is looking at Willow's relationship with Tara as being this kind of conquest for her. Like, she went on a little like journey and ended up somewhere. And I think that Xander is jealous of Willow getting to have that experience. I don't think Xander wants to be gay. He just sees that Willow has done this really experimental thing and come out the other side, and he's just jealous of that world experience.
Okay. I think he also just kind of wants to have a little sex dream about Tara and Willow.
I think he likes when the witches do spells, and then sometimes he goes and does a spell by himself.
I agree. And then, I mean, his interaction with Anya is very perfunctory, and I think they even stress how artificial it is by the fact that it's obviously a green screen behind them, or maybe even, I don't even know if it was green
screen. It is
screen.
green screen.
Looked like rear projection. Or
That's
like
what Joss wanted to do. He wanted to do projection, but they couldn't rig it, so it is green screen. You can actually see the green in their hair every so often.
Oh yeah, it looked like rear projection. I'm like, wow, look at that. But it looks fake.
It's even got the film actually has scratches and tears on it. I noticed that.
Yeah. And she, and you know, she's so just like, yeah, I think I'm gonna get back into vengeance. I'm like, and Xander's like, vengeance, that's not good.
I remember what that was like.
Hey, and you know, when he's like, I want to go back there, and she's like, oh no, that's fine. I think I've learned how to control the car with wild hand gestures.
And she does.
And she does. I think that part of that is, I think that their relationship is not like a normal relationship. It's sort of like Xander got the best thing he could at the time. He found someone who was totally attracted to him physically, and I think Anya is also emotionally attracted to him as much insofar as she can be. And yet, like, isn't there something more? Isn't there something like Xander loved Buffy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he loved this like really fiery, aggressive human being, and he's settled for someone who had been a demon for 1,000 years, who's hot and likes him and wants to, you know, screw his brains out all the time. But like, isn't there something more? And I think that might be some of the jealousy that you're talking about. Like, Tara and Willow have kind of an adult relationship.
Yeah, I think
they
you're right.
Love each other, right? They love each other because, you know, they have so many common interests, and they care deeply about one another, and you know, they can be funny with one another, and they've had ups and downs, and like, that's nothing like Xander's never gonna have that with Anya. I'm sorry to say. And I don't know. I said the same thing, I don't know, like 10 episodes back, like, they're going to kill Riley. I don't know if they're going to kill Anya, but I don't know how much longer the Anya-Xander relationship can last if Xander really wants to have, like,
an adult relationship.
Adult relationship, yeah. And then he, in his mind, stresses the adultness of the relationship with, you know...
what Willow and Tara are doing back there?
Spells. So then he goes back there and crawls through the back of the truck, and it somehow ends up back in the basement.
Yeah, this is one of the first times in the episode they squish some sets together, and he literally crawls from one into the next.
Oh, I gotta jump to the end of his dream because it was so cool. When he goes from the Kurtz set to Giles's house, to the school, to Buffy and Willow's dorm, to the closet, to the crawlway, back to the basement, all in one shot. Sometimes the camera's behind him and sometimes it's in front of him. That was the coolest thing in the entire episode.
I bet Joss was just like, what set, like he just pictured in his head like, what sets can we put together? Okay, I could do this, and then the school, and this will be great. It was probably just like an exercise in set moving.
But it was so cool.
It was cool. You can't. There's no possible way to get away with that normally. So to be able to pull it off in a dream is like an awesome experience.
Yeah, and we talked about this when we talked about following in the podcast. They obviously had to practice this quite a lot too, because it was one shot and the camera moved quite a lot. Very cool. Loved it. So in between those things, Xander somehow ends up at college. And it's like a different universe. There's all these like Dutch angles, and it's green for some reason.
All the colors are really blown out, super saturated. The backgrounds are different colors from the foregrounds.
Yeah, and then they all eventually start speaking French.
Yep.
Which is not super complicated French. I could basically follow it.
What you have to know is
you know, Anya comes up and she basically, in French, she says, "You have to come with me," and he's like, "I don't know what you're saying." uh, and she leads him through the school, and then
they do this like Inception thing where Giles and her grab him, and then like random people from the hallway just all grab him.
That's true.
And then they flipped the camera upside down with him.
Yes. And then it goes directly to the Xander in the war.
The same shot that he was watching on the TV from his half-remembered Apocalypse Now.
And then it turns into a pretty faithful recreation of...
It is a shot-for-shot exact replica of Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, of Martin Sheen getting brought to Kurtz at the end of Apocalypse Now. And instead of Kurtz, it's what's his name?
It's Principal Snyder.
It's Principal Snyder. He even does the whole... He's got the little, like, wooden bowl and, like, puts the water on his bald head and, like, dab, 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 dab.
It's amazing.
It's great. And I don't even know what they were talking about. I don't even know if it made any sense. I didn't write anything down. They were just like...
I think basically the Kurtz character is just delivering Kurtz-like dialogue.
Yeah.
And Xander's just responding to it in a kind of like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about kind of way.
The only thing I can remember Xander is saying, I'm really glad that you got eaten by a snake. So he keeps ending up in the basement. I think that's probably
that is the point
of the fact that he can't escape the basement. He probably needs to figure out something with his life.
He keeps looking at the door and saying, that's not the way out.
Right. And then his dad bursts in at the end, and he seems kind of drunk, and he's wearing a wife beater, and it's like, you think you're better than us?
Are you ashamed of us?
Are you ashamed? Blah, blah, blah. And I don't remember everything he says, but he rips his heart out, and it turns into the first Slayer. And then he's flopping around on the couch.
Big faker.
Big faker. Giles. Giles thinks Buffy is a child.
Yeah.
At least in his dreams.
He's there with on-again, off-again girlfriend who we never see.
I don't even know her name. I have Giles.
I think it's Olivia.
And his girlfriend. And I just capitalized girlfriend so it looked like a proper noun.
I only know that it's Olivia by looking at the Wikipedia.
Olivia. He's there with Olivia. They're at a carnival kind of thing. He needs to choose between lots of things. Giles has a lot of choices to make. I think that's the point of his dream. Like
Giles also seems to be the first one who knows that he's having a dream.
Yes. Also,
he seemed to know what was going on in Xander's dream.
Yeah, he mentions, the others already went ahead of you, and, you know... he's like, I'm not sure, but it's something to do with Buffy or something. I don't know what
it's what we did.
It's what we did. It's something to do with what we did. They keep emphasizing the special relationship between Giles and Spike, and I don't know what's going on here, but I wanted to bring it up because they brought it up in Xander's dream. It's here in this dream. We've mentioned several times in the body of this project that isn't it always fun to watch Giles and Spike together?
Yeah.
And they bring it up again for some reason. I don't know why. I just wanted to bring it up.
Because they know maybe they've had fun putting Giles and Spike together.
Maybe, we have that whole Spike is in black and white, like, I sold myself out as a circus attraction, and he's like taking pictures, and that's when Giles is like, this is right. He says, what am I supposed to do with all of this?
This is another one of those dream things where his girlfriend is tied up in the back. Like, that's what Spike is getting press attention for. Like, he's the evil villain. And Giles is doing nothing about it.
But because he's starting to get, like, what's happening.
This isn't real.
Right. And then, hey, we're at the Bronze. Hey, we haven't been to the Bronze in a while. Let's go to the Bronze. I don't know why Giles would think of the Bronze, except what happens in, like, 2 minutes. And then I had this one note that was a meta note. It seems like, I don't know if this is true, I didn't time them, that every dream is shorter than the last dream.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I know that they are between commercials, but I don't know how far apart the segments are.
It seemed to me like my notes are shorter in each dream. I kind of like on the Netflix, I kept checking. I'm like, oh man, this seems really, this seemed shorter than that one. I don't know. And we probably won't go back because it's the
Giles's dream felt the shortest.
It felt short, and I think Buffy's was even shorter than Giles because hers is very short.
Okay, yeah, you might be right.
So they seem like they just build in pace. They get quicker.
Yeah, we've set up a bunch of rules in Willow's dream, and then they don't really need to review them again. And then Xander's just gets shorter and more concise.
Right, and I think that Giles's was pretty short. So
Okay.
now he's at the bronze. Anya is trying to tell.
Oh my god, I love her comedy set.
I assume that they're doing that because they're emphasizing that she's sort of like not a real person. Like she's sort of somewhat distant from normal humans. The duck was attached to him.
And then they all laugh. Xander's like, ha 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 ha.
And then Xander and Willow seem to acknowledge like that they have gone through something. And Xander, he's got like a stain. In
Yeah,
the
they're
middle of
both
his shirt.
they're both dead.
They're dead, and they're like, Willow's like, what's going on? And Giles starts to put it together, and he puts it together in song.
He just starts. He turns into an opera man and just starts singing lines of dialogue.
And I did look up. His song is called the Exposition Song. I love this song. I think it's really brilliant. I think it actually is kind of catchy, and I've been humming it since I've seen this episode. I've got to warn Buffy. There's every chance she could be next. And also, this is why I think he's at the bronze. He kind of has that bug to sing. That's like part of his life. He goes to the coffee place. He kind of practices at home. Why would he have a dream with a crowd of people who are all shouting and like really want to hear him sing if that wasn't like something he wanted to do and part of his life that he's kind of like left behind in some way?
Gotcha.
Right?
He has an itch to perform.
He does, and it also leads to another one of my favorite parts of this entire episode, when he's really just like letting it go, and they got the drums going and the guitar, and the crowd has lighters out. Willow and Xander have them out too, but they're looking in books. They've got like lighters up in the air, but they have their heads in books.
Sure, whatever, Giles.
Sure, okay, we're doing that. So he basically says that the spell we cast with Buffy.
You're just gonna say the lyrics.
Has brought forth some primal evil, and then I actually have this specific note. Giles really wants to sing and be a brilliant watcher. He wants to do both of those things, and he gets interrupted by like feedback. He goes backstage, and I think at that point he's kind of put together what's going on, because he even says like, I can beat you with my intellect, and then he said, you never had a watcher. He knows.
That is the clue to the audience. Finally, like, oh, I think I know who it is.
Ooh, something with a slayer. And then she scalps him.
That was his. She cut open into his intellect.
Yes, and then he had like marinara sauce pouring down his head.
I think it was barbecue.
His blood looked lumpy. Had all sorts of thoughts inside of it or something.
That's what it is.
So then Buffy. Buffy is the final dream. And it was actually a dream within a dream. Not like Xander's, but what was the very opening? I know that she dreams and then she wakes up again, but she's in her bed upstairs. In the bed that she had made with Faith many episodes before. I forget what the beginning of her dream was. And then she gets like portentous talk with Tara.
Yeah.
Right? I didn't quite understand why Tara was in this episode. Like, so the one thing that in Willow's dream and especially in Buffy's dream is I don't know if Tara was just a figment of their imaginations or if she was actually there.
Okay.
Or like part of it somehow, like I know she wasn't in the house, but like was she kind of interacting with them, or was she just like
inserted by the mind?
Right, and that I didn't understand, because once again, Tara was talking to Buffy about like things that are much bigger than what Buffy was talking about. Buffy is talking about like, I need to find the others, right? Like she wants to find her friends.
I have to help my friends.
But Tara is obviously talking about something much, much, much bigger than all of that. And because I know about this now, she even mentions Be Back Before Dawn, which becomes important in the next season, which we will not talk about.
Kind of a little bit important.
Kind of. Why is Joyce in a wall?
Why is Joyce in the wall? And why does Buffy walk away just as Joyce is like, you could like let me out of here?
Right? And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, a mouse is tickling my knee. She could let her out. Like, why? What is? I have no idea what that. The only thing I can think of is it like the distance between Joyce and Buffy thing? I don't know.
It's got to have something to do with that.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, like, there were so many things in this episode where I was like, I don't know.
It probably means something, but I'm just gonna scratch my head.
Yeah. Riley and human Adam are going to take over the world with coffee makers that think.
Which actually sounds like something that could work.
It sounds kind of like like potentially a Buffy sort of script. Like, yeah, it's coffee makers, but they think.
And then they go to build a fort.
Out of pillows.
I'll get the pillows.
Adam, normal looking, looks normal. He looks like a kind of a normal dude.
Yeah.
So obviously the makeup and the whatever they put on him makes him look like really big.
The platform shoes.
Yeah. Adam says something, and Buffy says, "We're not demons," and Adam says, "Is that a fact?" They're all demons, man.
They're all demons.
They're all living in a village.
Yeah, this put the question in my mind about what Buffy's classification actually is, because she is a supernatural being.
That's true.
So what? I don't know where she falls in the spectrum of demon to what do they have, like, good supernatural beings besides Buffy?
I don't know. That's a good question. So, like, we brought this up in, I don't know, I want to say episode 16 when Willow and Tara were going to do the, like, map all the demons spell.
Yeah.
And Tara sabotages it. I said, like, I don't know why she did it. And now I'm convinced, I'm more and more thinking that Tara is a demon or has some demon in her. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe I'm wrong and it's Willow. But I think that's a good point. Like, what about Buffy?
What does she count as?
Right. I mean, we know in the mythology that there were humans and there were demons. And then demons somehow, I think this goes all the way back to the first season, demons somehow intermingled with humans, and that made vampires. And then we have Slayer, which is Buffy, and that's one person, or like, maybe several people. We've had a couple Slayers. We've had Faith. We had who was the girl in the second season who died?
I don't remember her name.
Don't remember her name. Yeah, I don't know what to call her. Good demon?
Because have we seen the powers that be yet?
Isn't that only an angel?
Is it only an angel?
Well, we haven't seen it in this.
We're traveling way outside of the plot line of this episode.
So Tara speaks for the first Slayer because the first Slayer doesn't have any language, because obviously this is from a long time ago.
Yeah, the reason we've been getting this desert and all of this like tribal sounding stuff is because I'm assuming the first vampire and the first Slayer and all of this stuff like came from the cradle of humanity. This is like Africa.
Yes. And Tara, as the first Slayer, says a lot of things. The one thing I wrote down in my notes of all of her high-sounding stuff is that the first Slayer, she lives in the action of death. So she only has existence in killing other things. And that's where she gets the whole, like, I live alone, there's no friends, like, all I do is kill things. And that's...
She's like a muscle reaction.
Yeah, or a shark.
Yeah.
And Buffy is different from the first Slayer, or she claims that she's different, right? Like, I have friends, when I look at the cards that Tara gave me that showed my hands, they're not my hands, they're my friends. And, you know, the first Slayer's like, no friends, just kill, we're alone. Buffy, kill, Slayers, vampires bad, whatever. I have no language. And Buffy is just determined to be like, no, you don't define who I am. Like, you might be the source of my power, but you're not the source of who I am. I think she even says that specifically. And then we get these really cool shots in the desert where they're up close and fighting, and then it cuts to like these really like wide shots that are all super slow-mo with no sound, and then it's close again and they're fighting. Must have been fun to edit that and put that all together. And then the first Slayer is like stabbing her like repeatedly with like a trowel or something, and Buffy's just looking at her like, okay, what are you doing? And she's like, you can't do anything to me. Like, this is over. I'm just going to ignore you, and you're going to go away.
And that's all she has to do.
And that's what happens. And there's a little bit of episode at the end, you know. I think Buffy says, like, why didn't you tell us that something like this would happen? And
Giles is like, I did. I said there could be dire consequences.
And then Buffy says, but you say that about chewing too fast. It closes out with her saying, well, at least you didn't dream about that guy with the cheese. And then they all kind of look at each other like, whoa, she dreamt about the guy with the cheese too?
I know that guy.
It ends with her looking into the bedroom with that made bed and Tara voiceover saying, you think you know what's to come, what you are, you haven't even begun. So obviously, this is just the beginning of something much, much bigger than we've even begun to think about, or Buffy has even begun to think about.
Now, I think I can describe this without spoiling anything.
Please do. We'll leave everyone with this.
They thought, they were contracted until the end of season 5.
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning of season 3, Joss started layering in little hints for basically all the way until the end of season 5. And we get to see a whole bunch of those things happen during during the finale here. We get to see all these things finally play out, and then the 5th season wraps up all of the stuff that they had planned out. Then after season 5 is when they changed networks. So, like, part of this whole thing had to do with the production of the show.
Mm.
So there is an ending to season 5 that actually could have been the ending to the entire series. And everything that we're getting hints of is that ending.
That reminds me a lot of the way that Babylon 5 was produced. Like, it was a whole 5-season thing that they planned out basically from before the first episode, and they did the whole thing, and that it's easy to lay little hints, you know, instead of like doing Lost or something where you're just figuring it out as you're going.
What are you talking about? They had a whole plan, didn't they?
Oh, sure. So I was thinking about this today, whether this episode is like where it lands on my scale of Buffy episodes I've seen so far. And if Hush had not been in this season, this would definitely be my favorite episode. Since it does land in this of this season,
mm-hmm.
Since Hush did land in this season, and I think it was just so brilliant, I'm sort of torn between the two of them. But I still think that for a finale, this was kind of crazy brilliant, and I loved it. And hats off to you, sir, for picking a season that had such a strong ending.
Especially because I actually forgot that this is the way the season ended.
You didn't even know. So someone asked us, like, hey, can you guys do like a director's commentary of the last episode? And I hadn't seen it. I didn't know anything. So I told Sean, like, well, watch it and then let me know if you think we can do it. And then I get this text message at like 10 some night from Sean. He's like, we can't do a director's commentary.
No way. First of all, we wouldn't be able to keep up with what was happening because we would just want to stop and talk about like one thing. And second, I would feel like an asshole commentating Joss Whedon's like amazing coda to this season. Like, I just don't feel like my place is to do that.
I agree. And also, I think that Joss would be like, we would be talking about, like, oh, this thing and how it's so important. And then, if Joss were there, he'd be like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I just put that in because I liked it. An episode like this lends itself to be overanalyzed when it, in a lot of ways, you should just sit back and enjoy it. Which I think is, like, which is Buffy. Like, Buffy lends itself for just, like, painful analysis when a lot of times you just gotta sit back, click your seatbelt in, and just, like, let it ride, and you'll love it. And I did. I loved all of it.